To Reverend Chris for giving me the opportunity to talk to you this morning. As most of you know, I was out in Uganda in February doing some teaching, and so many people have said to me, I'd love to hear more about it, that I've now been given the opportunity for that. Now, forgive us, but the pointers, no, the remote's not working terribly well, so every time I wave, to change the slides. So, we'll try first of all, see if we've got no, you're going to have to change. As you probably know from years of listening to the BBC News or whatever news you listen to, Uganda has had a really, really turbulent history. You'll know the names of dictators like Obote and Idi Amin, and the Bush Wars lasted for 6 years, when even child soldiers were being instructed to murder their own parents. So a dreadful, dreadful background of killing fields. And out of this has come a charity called the Fields of Life. And because they have still a dictator, a president called Museveni, but they've had a lot of stability over the last 25 years. And so the population has grown enormously. And there are now 22 million children under the age of 14. Half the population is under the age of 14. All these kids need food, an education, a job, and a home. And sadly, there aren't enough supplies to go round. And so this charity has at its basis the belief that every young person has a right to be fed, to be watered, to be safe, to be educated, and to be skilled. Now, if you look at the map there, you can see the size of Africa. I didn't realise how big Africa was. It's an enormous country. Look at it compared to India. I haven't got a pointer, so I can't show you. But where I was with Uganda, and that is a tiny little yellow spot on the map there, which is in Eastern Africa. And even in that tiny country, there are 22 million children. Now, the reason why I went was because, as is the case with so many people, somebody asked me to go. Somebody came up, tapped me on the shoulder and said, will you come with us? And in this case, it happened to be this chap called Nigel Quinn, who is a retired barrister, who was a very good friend of my late husband. And he said, will you come with us? And I thought, well, I'm retired now, we'll give it a whirl. Now, because I'm a newbie, you can see I didn't have a little Miss T-shirt to match everyone else's. But if I go back, maybe I'll get a T-shirt of my own. So some of the typical scenes in Uganda are very, very different to the scenes in Belfast. If you're lucky enough to own a motorbike, then you'll use it to transport all sorts of things. You can see sugar beet being transported here, and also pineapples. They had the most delicious pineapples, which we had every morning for breakfast. Health and safety is not regarded as a paramount issue as it is in the UK, so you can see this guy with his chairs. Women are the ones who do most of the manual labour, and you can see a woman carrying these baskets, which presumably she has woven. She's taken them to market to make some money. And also in the picture below you can see another young woman carrying this huge canister of water. I couldn't even lift these with two hands, and these women were carrying them on their heads. And then of course, you know, one bike fits all, so here's the whole family. And note the woman is on the back side saddle. Can you even imagine how precarious that is? With in crazy places with no traffic lights and no road signs. So every morning we set off at 7 o'clock in our bumpity-bump bus, which would definitely have been put to rest had it been in the UK, and off we went for an hour into the bush. And on the left-hand side you can see what the bush looks like. It's very fertile after the rains, and it's just like sand when the rains haven't been for a while. And as we drove along, the roads got worse and worse. And the thing about Uganda is everything is red. Red dust that gets into your clothes when you blow your nose, it's red. Everything about Uganda is red. And it's also extremely hot, 38 to 40 degrees. So you can see on the right-hand side that we had a big thunderstorm the night before. It's equatorial, so huge thunderstorms with thunder and lightning and lashings of rain. And the next day the road was flooded. And here are a couple of pigs which were chilling, just lying in the pool of water in order to cool. And we had to get out of the bus and chase the pigs, and then get our little bumpty bus through the potholes to get into the bush where we were going to school. So, mums in Uganda, again, a big difference from mums in the UK. Here are a number of pictures of mums going to work, mums going shopping, mums going to church, and in church, church services last for about 5 hours. And sadly, the mum at the bottom, I'll tell you a little bit more about her and some of her friends, far too young to be a mum. But the one in the middle, this is Irene, and she was the principal of the school that we were teaching in. Now, Irene had a child a year. The school has been running for 6 years, and every year the team went, she had the latest one. Did that stop her? No. She was a fantastic, dedicated woman who had authority, but also was able to have a laugh with the children. Now, I cannot thank the choir enough for the wonderful song they sang this morning. That's an African song, a Zulu song, Dancing to the Lord. The Africans dance to the Lord, and we started every morning dancing in assembly, and that's something that Africans really love to do. And this woman, Irene, oh my goodness, could she dance. So what I would like to do was to teach in this school in Nakaya. And what there is in Uganda is mud huts for anyone who's lucky enough to have a home. But what this charity has managed to do over the last 6 years, they have built this wonderful school. There are 450 children being educated there. In the middle you can see the picture of the water tank. Having a water tank is fantastic because the women and the girls don't have to carry water for miles each day. And to the left is the latrine. Now, I'm not sure that I believe in hell, but believe you me, when you've been in a latrine in Uganda, you think you've been on hell on earth. The stench, the flies, it is something else. But having a latrine for the children is really important because the two places where girls get molested, and this is an everyday occurrence, is one, when they're going out to get water, and secondly, when they go out into the fields in the evening to go to the loo. And that's where they get molested and very often raped. So if there is a water supply and a latrine in the school, this really makes the girls safe. At the bottom you can see a gate. Again, this is something very, very new. This has come completely from donations to the charity from Ireland. And having a gate meant that the children were safe, because very often children are kidnapped when they're out on the streets alone. They're sold into slavery, or even worse, and their body parts are taken. So having a gate on the school was really important, and a fence all around the school. The fence was only completed in the last month since we came home, and you can see in the bottom picture that we're already able to grow their own crops. And one of the things with the charity is that it wants to be self-sustaining. So our welcome was huge. African kids don't hold back. They are all over you, and they were so affectionate, so loving, so delighted that we were there. I honestly couldn't see what some of these kids had to smile about, but believe you me, they did. And in the middle you can see Dara, one of the team who's been out before, and the kids were so pleased to see her. You can see at the bottom just a tiny hint of me. Wherever you went, there were children surrounding you. You could not get away from them because they were just so pleased to have someone who was taking an interest in them and caring for them. So every morning we started with assembly, 450 kids out in 40-degree heat, and it's a Christian school, so they did a Bible reading. They speak relatively good English. The older they get, they do learn English in school, although Choli is their tribal language. And then we danced. Of course we danced. They always dance, no matter what the occasion. We danced, and then they went to their classrooms. Now, when I saw these t-shirts that the kids had on, you can see one with unique on her t-shirt, another one, every child matters. That's not the case. That's the ideal, but it's certainly not the reality. 1 in 5 girls is sexually abused, at least once in their life. Nearly 736 million women experience physical or sexual violence. You know, here in the leafy suburb of South Belfast, we have no idea how the majority of people live in the world. And I was absolutely shocked and absolutely taken back. And I must say, when I came back from Uganda, it took me a couple of weeks to even get over the experience because it is so shocking. And that's why I'm very keen to talk to you today, because I do feel quite passionate about this and other charities which are working in this area. Poverty, look at this kid's flip-flops. And the little boy on the right, I don't know where those shoes came from. They look as if they're about 10 generations old, but he was very happy to have a pair of shoes. And of course, they were dancing whenever I took this picture. And teaching, that was the reason why I was there. So what I was teaching was a programme called I Am Girl. Now the problem for little girls is that they're left at home to do the childminding if their mothers are out trying to earn a living. During their periods they're not allowed to go out because witch doctors would suggest that if they go out, the crops will fail. And I was there to try and dispel some of the myths about girls and about girls' reproductive cycles. And another absolutely horrible myth, and HIV is quite rampant in the area, is that if a man has sex with a virgin, it'll cure him. Now that's just terrible. Number one, it's not true. But secondly, the idea that girls would be used in this way, and as I say, it's quite a common thing to happen. The teaching in the school was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't believe that the quality of teaching. If you look closely, you can see that there was all the grammar on the walls. They were learning really good English, far better than I knew. They knew all about algebra. They were doing some equations here, and then we were teaching them the I Am Girl programme, and we were also teaching them the water programme, how important it was to stay clean, because there are so many diseases that they can avoid if they only clean their hands and wash their hands, and now they have water on site. Now, as you know, I speak quite quickly, and I found it really, really difficult to talk through a translator. So you'd say things in very short sentences, and then you had to stop and wait and let it be translated. And this guy, who's called Piero, was the vice head, absolutely dedicated to the children and very patient with me as I tried to say things in short sentences, and then he would explain them to the class. And we had a wonderful time. You can also see down at the bottom there, I'm showing the kids a picture of themselves on my phone. These children have pictures of themselves, they don't have mirrors in their homes. So the idea that you take a picture, they always wanted to see themselves, and then they would grab your arm, let me see it, and if you showed them a picture of themselves, then you made a connection with them. The barriers were broken down with the fact that you looked a different colour, you spoke a different language, you looked very, very different from them. And it was always very important to break down the barriers and then try and get the important message across to them. Now, when you look at this, you might say I'm saying no to sex. I'm not. Absolutely not. One of the great pleasures of life. But here, no to no non-consensual sex. And that's what we were talking about, and that's what we were teaching the kids. They had a right, the girls had a right to say no when men approached them and abused them. And this is so common. Now, if you look at the little mud hut on the right, where are the electricity pylons? Where are all the connections to give them Netflix or Amazon Prime or TV or music? These people have nothing. And in the winter they've got 12 hours of darkness. And sadly, we can see what some of the fathers and some of the big brothers get up to during the 12 hours of darkness. So, this is us saying girls have an equal right to boys to have education. Girls should be educated every day of the month. And we had all sorts of, visual illustrations with us, and the woman Dara, whom I showed you, and I were the sort of team comics, and we tried to act things out and make it fun for them. And I must say we had an absolute whale of a time, and the children, as you can see here, seem to be enjoying our approach. In the afternoons we did crafts. Now you might say, why on earth would you do that? That's not really relevant, that's not helpful. The lady Mabel, who's the wife of Nigel, they are the ones who were our co-leaders, she brought a suitcase full of crafts, and we made cardboard masks, we made bracelets, we made little plastic mirrors so they could see themselves, and they absolutely loved it. And there was no other reason but to show the children that we loved them, we cared for them, we'd gone out to see them, and we were coming back next year. And in the meantime we'd be spending money to support them. And some of the children even had the battered old masks that had been made the previous year. That's how much they cared. Lunch was an absolute mammoth task. 450 kids, all lining up. It took about an hour to actually get the kids fed. And here's a picture of me doing some of the cooking. Oh my goodness, 40 degrees over a coal fire. You can see how black and filthy it was in the kitchen, and I was stirring gruel, and it was back-breaking work. And you can see in the foreground there were some sweet potato husks to try and give the kids some protein. You can see how pleased the three girls in the middle are with their lunch, and the wee fellow on the right-hand side. And the reason why they're so pleased is because they don't normally get enough to eat. Out in the bush, you can see again, just a little stove here, some beans. Look at all the children who want that one bowl between them. And you can see this poor wee fellow on the right-hand side who's got this disease called kwashiorkor, where he hasn't got a fat tummy because he's eaten too much. He's got a fat tummy because he's got edema, because he's got protein depletion. He hasn't had enough protein, and he's really not well. And if you look closely, he's a really runny nose. All the kids have runny noses as well. So feeding these children is absolutely essential. Not only has this charity got a primary school, but it has now developed a vocational training institute. And just a month ago, they had the first graduation of the kids who'd gone through primary school, and then they had gone into the tech. And they'd learned carpentry, tailoring, fashion design, all the things that it says there. Now, as you can see, Africans never miss a chance for a bit of pomp and ceremony, and so this was the graduation par excellence with drums and bands and uniforms and dancing. And you can also see on the left-hand side there were lots of girls graduating, and this was fantastic. Now, this school has only been going for 6 years, but they've actually, got some of the kids. I mean, some of the kids who were in P7 in the primary school were 14, 15, 16, so then they were moving on to the tech. The charity also aims to make people self-sufficient. So what they were doing with the women was giving them an opportunity to develop their own business. And they did this through microloans. And either they gave enough money for the women in a cooperative to get together and have a pig. Then if they reared the pig for a year and the pig had piglets, then they'd 6 more wee pigs, and then they could actually develop a business. And also, a duck or a goose. And on the right-hand side, they bought a 5-acre scrap of land, and they're now growing their own crops. So this is all just the most wonderful experience to see these women who, they're in poverty, but they're desperate to do better. But if they got the opportunity, if they got half a chance, they would be extremely good businesswomen. And on the bottom, on the right-hand side, this was the women actually getting the profits and the rewards from the loans, and that was a delight to see. One of the things GP who'd been on the team a couple of years ago realised was a lot of the children had obviously, minor ailments. There were everyday injuries, and some of them had malaria, and there was no clinic. And so this was a clinic that was set up a couple of years ago. Now, basic it was, but it was actually an opportunity for people who had to walk, a whole day's journey to go. Gulu, the town that we were staying in, was 40 miles away. You just couldn't walk that with a sick child over your shoulder. So this was a little clinic which was in the area, and it was busy because there was always some child who needed something. There was one day, there was a wee girl with whatever it is, and she had really sticky eyes. And we took her to the clinic, and 2 days later, she was smiling, her eyes were fixed. But that's the sort of thing, if it goes untreated, that it becomes a serious problem. Parting gifts. Whenever we were leaving, we gave them some things which we thought would be useful to them. And you're going to laugh at this, but one of the things we gave was 2 pairs of pants to the wee girls, just to give them some dignity, because they were living in rags, and every little girl got a couple of pairs of pants, 1 pair to wash and 1 pair to wear. We also gave them all a plate, because we realised that some of the children didn't have their own plate, and if they didn't have their own plate, they weren't being fed. So we gave 450 plates that had to stay in the school so that every child would get a meal every day. And here on the right you can see Nigel and Jennifer, who was the team worker, get that soap, and this was soap for the school and for each family that was going to the school so that they could keep clean and so the water programme could actually be implemented. This is another place that we went when we were there. I showed you that picture of that little girl with her baby. And I wanted to tell you just another local story, because this is all local. The chap who started Fields of Life was a guy from Bray in County Wicklow, a guy with a farming background who just felt a passion to do this. And what I want to say today is it doesn't have to be, some really highfalutin, super educated, enormous corporate business that can do these things. This is what can happen if one or two people have a passion. And this is one woman who was called Valerie Duff. And the midwife from, I think she comes from Carrie Duff. Maybe she doesn't, maybe she comes from Saintfield, but who knows. Anyway, she went out to Uganda, and she saw that there were a lot of young girls who were unsafe in their homes, who were pregnant, and she wanted to help them. And she set up this home for teenage girls. And we went to the home, and you could see some of the kids dancing, of course, because even though they were about to deliver the next day, it didn't stop them dancing. You can see the beautiful little babies they had. Down at the bottom, second from the left, I think that little girl was only 13. I was absolutely in my element, cuddling all these babies, and we had an absolutely great time. But this woman has managed to maintain this home for kids where they can deliver their babies safely, and then they can live there for a couple of months until they get the hang of mothering their children, and then go home to their own homes, or if not there, if they're not safe there, go somewhere else. And this is all from money that's been raised in Northern Ireland. Fields of Life. This isn't the only school that they have put together. This is the guy who's called Trevor Stevenson, who started this 25 years ago. There are the sort of statistics: 127 schools built, 31,000 kids benefited, 72,000 kids in partner schools, nearly 3,000 children being supported by sponsorship, 920 wells drilled, so that's all those girls are being protected because they don't have to walk miles and miles to get water. And £17.3 million raised in the island of Ireland for this work in Africa. I couldn't commend this charity to you anymore, because you know so many charities, and I do too, where a whole lot of money is 30% goes off into admin, or the CEO's earning 300 grand or something, and you just choke at the very thought of this. This money is all going to help the projects. And I just wanted to finish by talking about Margaret Mead, who's a scientist, anthropologist from a different era, but she, like Trevor and like Valerie Duff, said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So I have one more slide, and I'm going to unashamedly ask you to think about supporting Fields of Life. I know nobody has any cash anymore, so I'm hoping that this afternoon Alan will put a link to Fields of Life onto our Facebook page. There's no obligation, obviously, but if any of you like what you've seen today and think that it would be useful, Fields of Life survives through people's donations, and just think what you could do for one little kid there, and it would be enormous. So thank you very much for listening to me.